When did it dawn on you that the person you were dating wasn't very smart? It was a long time ago. Early 70s. With my first police department. Very cute girl working in the records room. First date was okay. But for the second I took her to one of those old-time melodramas that used to play on one of the old riverboats here in St. Louis. These were campy affairs that were just hilarious, with lots of audience participation. Midway through, I was cracking up over some of the on-stage antics, and I realized the young lady was just staring blankly. She was not getting it at all. Didn't last long after that. I'm not sure if it's a direct crossover into stupid, but she started off strong with announcing that she knew we never landed on the moon. That in of itself isn't that bad. I can take my time to explain different theories and the science evidence of the space missions. It was the follow-up punch that got me. And did you know how our world leaders are all lizard people? She was stone cold serious. To this day, don't know how to convince someone that lizard people isn't a real thing. Now crab people on the other hand ... When she told me that I was dumb for using my heat pump to cool my house to 66 for bedtime and then making it 72 when I wake up, she thought that the heat pump brings cold air into a house I just warmed up all day. No matter how much I explained that there is no air moving from the outside to the inside, she didn't get it. I showed her the whole system, and she couldn't figure out how the cold air got in. I realized she wasn't the one. She had other red flags about intelligence as well. She was 19 and didn't understand the finer points about where babies come from. She knew that a penis was involved, but not much else. She didn't know which acts could lead to pregnancy and which could not. She also didn't know which orifice babies came out of and was shocked and mystified when I explained. She is a sweet girl and a fit tennis player. Just appallingly sheltered and not particularly bright. She is in her 30s now and organizes children's activities at a resort. I married a girl and it took me a long time to realize that she's smart but in a different plane than me. Rather, she's straightforward, but doesn't enjoy the academic interests that I have. She watches Housewives of Uganda for the manufactured chaos and conflict made for social media. I can't stand that shit. I listen to deep dives about whatever subject and she would prefer background noise like 90s music. Took years. But what can you do? When my wife and I were 2 months into our relationship, we were crossing over a bridge when I had a sharp stomach pain. I kinda winced. And she noticed it. She asked what was the matter. To which I responded, "Oh, nothing. I think it's my ovaries." For a moment she went wide-eyed and squinted at me. I started laughing. For a couple moments there she thought she'd made a terrible mistake. Joke's on her though. She's still married to me, LOL. When he laughed at the crudest, most insipid joke I made, and I mean really laughed, like it was the first funny thing I'd said. Earlier the same evening we were in a cinema, and he didn't seem to enjoy the movie, so at some point, during a moment that wasn't epic or cool, he loudly clapped, as if to show a sarcastic enthusiasm. Okay, that was maybe more mean than dumb, but he made himself look rather stupid in a process, I think. We were talking about some well-known child murderer pedophile who targeted little boys, and I mentioned it was horrifying. He looked puzzled and said, "How is that horrifying? You aren't a little boy." I guess that also leans more towards a lack of empathy than not being smart. He also thought he should microwave dry ramen, or the water boiled on the stove before we put it in the boiling water to speed things up. When I picked her up from work, she started complaining about this long interaction she had with a shoplifter. This was not in California. This was nearly 20 years ago. I stared in disbelief and asked her why didn't she just call the cops. It's a small town and they were literally 3 blocks away. Instead, she argued with a woman for so long that other patrons got mad, put down their items and left. T really analyzed actions, and her saying she didn't want to talk during a fight because she was scared she'd say something she'd regret were all things I slowly came to realize after we broke up. I have two different men. One thought banana nut muffins were made from nuts from a banana tree. The other was talking about going back to school for marketing, but said he would absolutely only work to sell products he really believed in. Or sweet summer child. I guess that's more naive than not very smart, but it made me question his understanding of the world. Load me, he had an education as a carpenter, but he never took the final test that would grant him the actual paperwork, so his only education was paperless and therefore without value for most businesses. He then tried to get an education through the army, but didn't get in because he failed the IQ test. Thank the gods this was the first date. It was also the last. We were playing a Pictionary-style game. I was giving the phrase South America to her. I pointed to North America on a map and said the word South. She didn't know. The timer ran out and we lost the point. Then just to finish the clue I said, okay, if this continent is North America, then what is this continent to the south of North America? Still no idea. My ex had a very well-off family, and they had everything you could imagine. I loved their family. Always very supportive and willing to go the extra mile. My ex took every chance they could to badmouth them or talk about how dumb they were, and was overall very ungrateful and spoiled. Hated breaking up with the family, loved finally breaking up with them. Way too many to name. But it got to the point where I started researching intelligence levels. The sad part about it was that he wasn't very bright, but was also a know-it-all and very cynical about listening to anyone outside of his friends and whatever he saw on social media. FWIW. We're no longer dating, LOL, and relatedly. I had moved in with my ex and worked to get his cable cancelled in favor of other options. I was collecting the equipment to send back and asked if the HDMI cord was his or the cable company's. He responded with, "Wait, don't take that out. It's what gives the TV the HD." I unplugged it to send back to the cable company. She started to hate me after watching Jeopardy. She honest to God thought I had recorded the episodes prior and was fucking with her. She couldn't answer one single question in like for shows. And I did about 40, which is not crazy smart either. It got to 4 final questions. I then knew public school owed her a refund. First girlfriend. When I realized she had no convictions whatsoever other than just repeating things other people say. That one flew under the radar for quite a while, because she had a lot of highly educated opinions, but held those opinions because she was indoctrinated, not because she actually believed them. When my ex stared at me while I was screaming when I noticed that they were about to rear-end the car in front of them. He ended up rear-ending while driving my car, told me he was going to drive me to work, and I just let him, to save me from being late to work. I feel like I'm the dumb one for dating the fucker. She got a jug of water to put out an electric toaster fire. I also found the remains of an extension cable with the plug of an electric kettle welded into the socket after I specifically told her not to use the kettle. At that point I realized the person I had married was dangerously ignorant. She got me mad libs, and when it was her turn to do a noun she asked, "What is a noun?" I said it's a person, place, or thing. There was a long silence as she thought. It went on for so long that I thought she must be thinking of the best noun I had ever heard. Then she said place. To be fair, we had been driving on a one-way street. Got to the intersection where it switched to 2 ways. I pointed that out, but she insisted on driving in the left lane because it was a one-way street. I said okay, and put on my seatbelt. And I haven't not worn a seatbelt since. When we were talking about politics with some friends and the fall of the Berlin Wall came up, somehow we got talking about Reagan. She looks me straight in the eye and goes, "Oh, you mean the guy with the thing on his head? I know him. My mom said he was sexy as an actor, yeah." I had an advanced degree in science, but stated confidently and condescendingly that there isn't any evidence of evolution, at least not macroevolution. He was also an avowed objectivist. Then I proved how smart I was by staying with him for way too long. I introduced him to a game that I had been playing for years, and he mansplained to me how to play it, and explained it wrong. When I corrected him, he doubled down, so I said sure. We lost 3 games playing his way and then he blamed me. He refused to try it my way. Not my partner, but my sister with a master's degree in some mental health field asked me when she had to start getting yearly prostate exams. I get geese and ducks mixed up. My father, who lived into his 70s, could never keep AM and PM straight. She said her new Fitbit wasn't working because when she ate food it didn't automatically show up on the app. Like she thought the food section of the app knew exactly what you ate whenever you ate it, instead of having to manually put it in. When she flipped out because her third grader came home with erect on a spelling list and was on the verge of calling the school. She honestly had lived her entire life not knowing erect had any other use aside from describing a penis. I was married to him and I asked him to install a shelf. One shelf to L brackets. The shelf was 2 feet. He put the L brackets in the middle 2 inches away from each other. I just couldn't. Thank goodness I put together all the baby furniture. They were an art hipster who thought they knew more about everything than the average person. They complained that the askers were dumb and trite and only normies cared about them, that the Academy Awards were far more prestige and important. Use the leaf blower to clean the inside of the house. Edit: I was the one to use the leaf blower. I opened the front door and was blowing heaps of long dog hair outside when I didn't have a vacuum. My wife still makes fun of me for it. They knew nothing about word origins or meaning. Obsolete and absolute were used interchangeably. So was recession and renaissance. They didn't know that viruses often evolve, and that's why the flu shot was offered every year.